Hello, everyone. How are you? So, we have finally reached the weekend and we are almost ready to start this event. In a few minutes, we will connect with our fantastic speaker for the day. In the meantime, I'd like to know how was your week? I think that for me, the main point that struck me was all the news that are coming from the US about these fights and barriers that they want to create between the US and China. In particular, because like lately, I've restarted playing a little bit of League of Legends. So at first, we got this news about TikTok. I don't have an account on TikTok, but it kind of surprised me that they wanted to ban it from the US. I know that in China they have limitation on US products and European products, but I would have thought that the US would always stand for freedom of expression and not put up barriers. And now we've had all these confusing news about bans to TikTok or this push to sell its operation to Microsoft. So I think that is an interesting thing and it could be a particular evolution, especially for Microsoft. And this is something else that kind of surprised me because if you think back 10, 15 years ago, Microsoft was always the one that was under the lens for their dominant position and monopoly in the markets when the antitrust was always trying to breaking down Microsoft. Now, if you think back a few weeks, Microsoft was not on the panel with the Senate Commission. There were Apple, Amazon, Google, and Facebook, and I was sort of surprised that Microsoft was not there. And now the only big company that is sort of allowed and almost expected to buy TikTok is Microsoft. So to me, that was weird, to say the least, if I think back 10, 15 years ago. But I don't know, it marked sort of a shift on our conception of Microsoft, I guess. But even more so, while I could understand this whole angst against TikTok, it came to even bigger surprise to me that now they are discussing to bring the same treatment to Tencent, which is a big Chinese company that, at least in my case, is famous for being one of the major stakeholder in League of Legends, other than a communication tool like WeChat. So, okay, I could have seen it under the same reasoning with for WeChat, but it was surprising thinking that they want to sort of stop this Chinese participation in an online game that, yes, they can mine for information, but I would assume it's limited in that regard. Do you have any idea or any thought about that? What is your opinion in that regard? So please let me know. It's something that I really
idea or any thought
I'm interested in hearing. So Amanda, she's almost here. So we are getting ready for a speaker, I assume, I hope, because truth to be told, we are having some little problem reaching out to our speaker. Hopefully this is going to be only temporary and very soon we will get there. I think that I usually am not straining from these
Firebase code logs.
Firebase code from this seat. I'm kind of happy with it because like this is my Gundam collection. I don't know if you are familiar with the topic, with the anime or with the building of these kind of models. And that's one of the relaxing things that I usually do after work or during work sometimes to to blow up some steam, to do some activity that is not connected to the screens. What do you do when you need to get out of the screen? So is it still happening, Amanda?
Yeah, sorry everyone, I'm trying to reach out to the speaker and I'm not having much luck. So I'll talk as a whole how this event happens. Also, because if you're interested in this one, this is called Firebase Live Extended. And if you look for it on Google, Meetup, and other platforms, you will see that you see the name Firebase Live Extended and the name of the city. It's a web series for app developers consisting of talks, tips, and technical tutorials aimed at increasing your productivity, knowledge, and collaboration. And then in the end, after they present something, you can ask them questions. I'm trying to find someone else to give a talk here, but I don't want to take much from your time. So if you're interested in this and you still want to have the opportunity to have the chance to do it, I'm going to write here in the chat. It's called Firebase Live Extended. So look for all the ones which are happening around there. Maybe I could show you a bit on if you would like to get started with Code Labs. To get started with Firebase, maybe you don't know Firebase, I can show you some of the resources to get started. I'm going to quickly share my screen and codelabs.google.com. Codelabs. Firebase Web Code Lab. 1 second. So Code Labs. Okay, I'm going to share my screen now. Share screen. Chrome tab. Google Code Labs. All right, so if you go to the website codelabs.developers.google.com, and then you can search here by piece of technology, you have many tutorials. They're called Code Labs, Code Laboratories, where you have a guided tutorial, a chance to have a hands-on experience, and they guide you how to achieve, how to build something. It could be an existing application, some things using different technologies. And I like the ones that involve front-end technologies. I did a bit of TensorFlow.js. There are some progressive web apps. So if you had taken this time to watch a talk right now about Firebase, it would be excellent if you could just, make a good use of this time and use it to learn something. We're still trying to get another speaker. Someone just answered to me. They could potentially come right now. And let's see if they can. So, Sav, if you were to take one of these code labs, which one would you go for?
Okay, so you know that I'm a little bit more biased for the backend part. And I was looking at Firebase, and in particular, I would be interesting if there is something called Firebase function, cloud function for Firebase.
I think they changed the name of Firebase functions. It's now cloud functions, isn't it?
So basically, if you have experience with GCP in general, cloud functions are the same thing, but they're hosted a little bit more integrated with Firebase. And I've been really involved in recent times with
You're live.
Oh.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Sorry.
How you doing?
Sentence.
So yes, lately I've been particularly involved with the development of the .NET cloud functions.
Mm-hmm.
So this instead is the same thing, but for Firebase. I would assume that it doesn't support .NET yet, and maybe we can ask Jason what are the languages that are supported for the cloud functions for Firebase.
So Cloud Functions for Firebase currently supports JavaScript and TypeScript. As far as I'm aware, there's no plans to add any other languages at the moment. If you want to use other languages, you can create regular Cloud Functions and then deploy them using gcloud functions deploy within GCP. So, and I'm working with people who are doing that. They're writing all of their Cloud Functions in Python, but they're using Cloud Firestore as their operational data store. So that's completely doable.
That would be really cool, because like I've been pushing so much for having .NET supported by Cloud Function, and it's finally happening. It's in alpha. I think that very soon we will have a public beta. And finally, I can have a little bit more fun with Firebase, but using my native language, which is, okay, Italian, but I would assume it meant C# in this case.
Thank you very much for coming and help out, Jason. It was a last-minute thing.
That's okay.
For that.
Pleasure, anytime. I don't know what have you covered so far, or what would you like me to do, and for how long?
So I think that
I think we have another 30 minutes.
Yes. So is there something new that people should know about? What has been new in the last few months for Firebase?
Well, that's a good question. I can't think of anything new that I can tell you about that's exciting. I mean, the most recent things that I'm aware of are things like performance monitoring for web, which were launched at Google I/O last year, and collection group queries. What's happened this year, I have to confess, I'm probably not as up to date as I should be.
Okay. So
we have the presentation here. Jay, so don't worry, take as much time as you need. If it's 10, 15, 30, 45 minutes.
Yes, and then maybe we can collect some questions from the attendees, because they may enjoy the opportunity to have such a knowledgeable person to answer their question when possible. And we will try to pitch in as much as we can as well.
Okay, I'm supposed to be somewhere else, so I'm going to be, I'd like to be as fairly short as possible, but I'll help in any way I can.
That's fine.
So, so this is a presentation I did in both in Nairobi and in India while I was over there, and it really goes through building scalable applications with all of the Firebase build components. This is me. I'm a Google Developers Expert for GCP and Firebase, and I'm also a Google Cloud Certified Professional Cloud Architect, which is really difficult to say. So moving on. So what is Firebase? Well, as you're here at a Firebase event, I'm guessing you're probably all aware that Firebase is here to help mobile and web application teams build secure, scalable applications using Firebase as a backend as a service. So what I'm going to do, and I'm probably not going to have time to go through all of this today, but certainly I'm quite happy to come back and do something at some point in the future. We'll look at a little bit around Firebase build components, architecture and security, and how to connect your apps to Firebase. And then at some point, I'd be happy to come back to another event and look at supercharging apps with Cloud Functions, reporting, archiving, analysis, and anonymization, which I call RAW, and DevOps, testing and deployment. So, in fact, Amanda Severio, if you want to jump back in for a second, you mentioned Cloud Functions. Do you want me to look more at the Cloud Function side, or look at any of those other topics in particular? I was hoping one of them would jump in and give me some feedback. So, and here's Amanda.
Yeah, sorry, I was just on the phone with our speaker. She said she had some connectivity problems, and she's going to be here in 10 minutes, Jason. So
okay.
I missed your question.
Okay, I was asking, out of these particular sections of the slides, if there's anything in particular you'd like me to cover, or whether I should just work my way through it until your next speaker's available.
Go ahead.
I'll just carry on. Okay, excellent. The main parts of Firebase build are authentication, Cloud Firestore, real-time database, cloud storage for Firebase, Cloud Functions, hosting, and ML kit, and we'll touch on each of those very briefly. So you're out there, you're building an app. So here we've got someone building a food delivery app, and we want to know, how do I make my app secure? Now you can go and you can build your own APIs, you can try and build your own authentication, you can do your own passwords, and then you've got a security headache. You've got to save passwords in some kind of hashed format. You've got to have a means of managing maybe multiple authentication providers. It's not just email and password. You might want to add sign in with Google, sign in with Facebook, sign in with Twitter, a whole series of different authentication providers. And then if you do provide something like email and password, how do you reset your password? How do you change it? How do you ensure that people don't hack into your accounts? And so really, for those people that don't want to manage passwords, Firebase authentication gives you a great solution out of the box. Now, these are some of the authentication methods that I mentioned previously, and there are a few more that are now added to the list. So you can use any one, two, or all of these authentication providers within your application. And there are more added to this list, and you can even create your own. There is a custom auth where you can add integration to other services like Okta, for example. In fact, recently, I think there was a blog post on the Firebase blog that shows you how to integrate Okta into Firebase auth. There's a ready-to-go toolkit. So if you want to get started with authentication and building a Firebase app, there's a Firebase UI for Android, for web, and for iOS. And there's also a React version for web as well. And what this does, this gives you a kind of an out-of-the-box template where you can set a user up for doing basic authentication, anonymous auth, or any one of the previous ones we saw, including things like password resets. So what happens once we've authenticated? Well, we're then going to want to serve some data to our users. And here we have a choice of two databases. We have Cloud Firestore and the real-time database. Now, the real-time database was the original database for Firebase and is an excellent means of providing very quick real-time data updates across multiple devices. But it was very limited on queries. So queries, typically, you could filter or sort by only one attribute. And so Cloud Firestore was born, and Cloud Firestore gives you a whole load of extra functionality. So we'll take a quick look at Cloud Firestore. So Cloud Firestore is a massively scalable, cloud-hosted, NoSQL real-time database. So what does that mean? Well, first of all, it's multi-region and it's strongly consistent. So every time you write to Firestore, that data is persisted across all regions and all instances where that data sits before it's pushed to the client. So there's no chance of data being different in different regions. It's serverless, so it grows with you. There's no provisioning to do. There's no setting up or config or managing clustering or any of those. It's a truly serverless development environment. Syncing, it will sync to multiple different devices at the same time. So any users or any clients that are logged in and looking at a particular endpoint within the database or a collection of endpoints will automatically get data synced across all of their devices. True support for offline mode. Again, real-time database is a really good tool, but it doesn't have full offline support for web. And as you can see, we've got multiple client SDKs, and there are more. So the three shown here are web, iOS, and Android, but there is additional support, and we'll cover some of those a bit later. So the real-time database is a very low latency solution. So this is good for mobile apps like games, things where you want updates to happen very, very quickly, truly in real time. It's limited by the speed at which updates happen. It's compared to, Firestore is limited by the speed at which updates happen. Real-time database is very quick. The real-time database really excels in providing this fast, low latency service, but querying is limited to one field, so you can filter and sort on one particular attribute. And the real-time database works a bit like a massive JSON tree that you can you start at a certain point at the root of the tree and you work your way down the tree. And anytime you call a particular endpoint on the tree, you see absolutely everything below it. One of the benefits with Firestore over this is that it supports shallow queries, so you look at one single document. Here we can see the syncing of the real-time database. So cloud storage, so this is effectively the same cloud storage that you get in GCP. So cloud storage will work with one or more buckets. You can store any kind of images, media files, and any type of blob storage you want. The benefit of cloud storage with Firebase is that you get that additional security rules that link in with Firebase authentication. So you can see here we've got 3 users who are accessing files, and the last one isn't accessing the file because something in their token, within their authentication token, has said they don't have access to this particular file. And then cloud functions. Saverio was talking about functions earlier. So functions allow you to run your own private code in the back end without servers. So these are particular tasks that you might want to do without revealing any of your secret source to the front end. Hosting. So hosting is a content delivery network provided by Firebase, and this allows you to easily host static web apps or to cache server-side rendered apps that are created in Cloud Functions. And you get SSL certificates and custom domain support out of the box. And finally, MLKit. It says beta here. I think it was when I created these slides. It may now be out of beta. And this provides you with optical character recognition, face detection, barcode scanning, landmark detection, and object detection. So we'll that's kind of a quick run through of all of the build components, and those are things typically you would use in the architecture of your application. Yeah, you may want to add other things like performance monitoring, remote config, A/B testing, other such things that help you to manage and deploy your applications. So, quick introduction to data modeling with Cloud Firestore. I'm kind of rattling through here. So Amanda and Saverio, I'm aware that you've got another speaker turning up, so feel free to tell me if I'm going too quickly, too slowly.
It's fine. You did say you had something else to do, so if you'd like to do a wrap up, our speaker is already ready.
Oh, awesome. Okay. In which case, what I'll probably do is go back to...
And you're very welcome to come here next time and give the talk in the best way that you prefer, Jason. Thank you very much.
Right. You're welcome. So with the standard build components, it provides a great platform for building an entire backend as a service. And at some point, I will happily come back and go through the whole section on data modeling and how you can integrate cloud functions into your application. So thank you. It's been great chatting to you all. And Amanda, I will hand back over to you and your next speaker.
Thank you very much for this, Jason. It's great that now it's an actual Firebase Live extended with many experts coming. Let's say it was the plan all along.
Yeah, indeed. Well, if it had been planned all along, I'd have worn my Firebase t-shirt, but never mind.
Thank you very much.
Anyway, it's good to see you. Talk to you soon.
Good to see you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, everyone. So now we'll have our main speaker here. She went through a journey to be here with us today. So I invite her. There she is.
We made it finally. Excuse the klutz. There's like this heat wave and no power in North Carolina, in Durham at the moment, and we were out of power for 4 hours with no air conditioning and temperatures over 36 degrees. So it's been interesting. It's been really interesting.
Wow. Thank you so much for being here. Are you sure are you still okay for doing this?
Definitely. I would never miss a talk. I would have given the talk without slides from my mobile phone, burning in hell outside. It's not the first time that these things happen, but definitely, yeah.
Yeah, the thing is, now that we're moving to more, remote talks and everything, that there's always something which is going to happen. So, yeah, people are appreciating that you showed up. So we have here, sorry if I pronounced your name incorrectly, Raja Zealand saying, thank you for making it. Thank you. I'll listen to you.
Thank you. So, the name of my talk today has a lot of significance. It's a roadmap to an open source artificial pancreas and diabetes monitoring with Flask. And you might think, well, what does this have to do with Firebase? And it's got a lot to do with Firebase, as a matter of fact. The idea with this is to inspire you and instill the concept that we all have amazing knowledge. We all have the power to make a positive impact in the lives of so many with what we know, and we can use tech for good. And before I start with anything, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Diana Rodriguez. I'm a Google developer expert in web technologies, Google Cloud, Google Maps, and Firebase. I'm also an Auth0 ambassador and developer advocate at Vonage. I'm a Python developer advocate at Vonage. I love the community, so if you want to get in touch with me through Twitter, Kotufa82. If not, you can go to my website, superdie.dev. Like I said before, I love community, and thank you so much for being here and waiting a little bit for me. This really means a lot to me. So, yeah, diabetes. I know it's funny, we're talking about Firebase, but diabetes. And I'll give you some context. 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with diabetes, and getting the diagnosis after a certain age, I would actually consider myself a woman of a certain age. I'm 38 years old. 2 years ago, I was 36, barely. It felt, oh, here you can see there's a cat. This is Mara. Getting this diagnosis was too much to handle. Imagine that your life spins 180 degrees all of a sudden. It was too much to handle. So yeah, the feeling of being broken in this slide actually tells you a little bit how I felt. Before getting into the technical details and everything, let's again talk about diabetes. So there are more types of diabetes. There's the type 1 diabetes, which is an autoimmune disease where your body stops producing insulin. Type 2, your body produces insulin but doesn't know what to do with it. Or like mine, type 1.5 or LADA, latent autoimmune diabetes in adults. It means, yeah, after 30 or after a certain age, your body stops producing insulin all of a sudden, and that's how it happened. There's also like type 3 for people who don't have a pancreas anymore, and gestational diabetes, and there are some other rare types. Anyway, so why this? Imagine that all the processes that are automated in the tech world, if they are run by humans, they become error-prone processes. And this is what happens with things like diabetes. And I'll be mentioning this word a lot. Imagine that your body runs this process where your pancreas regulates the amount of sugar in your bloodstream, or glucose. And now you have to do it yourself and sort of guess what goes on. And it is what it is. You're running an automated process manually. And yeah, it's terrible. And you're probably asking yourselves, why all this fuss? Why is this woman talking about diabetes and diabetes monitoring in a Firebase extended talk? I'll tell you why. Do you remember when I said that we can use our technology for good? I live in the United States, and this is a chart that represents the average out-of-pocket monthly diabetes cost back in 2016. In the United States, being diabetic, it's so costly that it can cost your own life. 4 years ago, it was $360 a month. Now, if I wanted to pay all my diabetes expenses out of pocket, I'd probably have to pay between $1,500 and $1,750 a month. The challenge starts with things like access to insulin and medication. And that's something really bad. Then I can't do anything about it. I can't think of code that can solve this problem. But then think about having some guidelines and running an automated process manually with the information that your blood sugars have to be between certain levels. When you eat food, you consume carbs. Those turn into glucose, and insulin regulates the right amount of glucose in the bloodstream. And then things like carbohydrate ratios. How much insulin per carbohydrates, per grams of carbohydrates, or per portion that you consume, those things are different, and they can vary over time. And insulin needs are different. In my case, I need more insulin at night than in the morning, and I don't know why. And then, I'm sure you're still thinking, what does this have to do with tech? But it's a good introduction. At first, we don't know anything. We're truly never under control. When a process that should be automatic is run by humans, it becomes an error-prone process. So if I give myself too much insulin, I can die because my blood sugar levels could be too low, and that's fatal. If I don't give myself enough insulin, I can die, probably a more painful death, because it can ruin my eyes, my kidneys, my heart, blood vessels, and I could probably lose limbs, etc. And then the most important part of it, this little one. This is my 6-year-old niece. She was diagnosed when she was 2 years old. And here she is, proudly showing her pump, her insulin pump and sensor. So I do all these things for her. When I said we can use technology to benefit our lives and the lives of a lot of people, I really mean it. So how can we help in the context of diabetes? And why Firebase, and why all these tools? And oh my goodness, my mind is full of trucks. How? Can we have some more context, please? Now that I shared the emotional side of it and my personal story, I can finally share with you the details that you'll want to know. So let's start with this. There are plenty of pumps and sensors in the market. Pumps basically facilitate the process of delivering insulin by not having to inject multiple times a day, but to have a cartridge and a system that basically delivers the amount of insulin needed to one site, and that's grand. Sensors solve the problem of having to prick my fingers multiple times a day. I'm actually wearing one on my belly at the moment. And you remember how I said that we're never fully in control? The problem is pumps and sensors don't speak the same language, and they don't communicate between themselves. So how difficult is it? How siloed, right? To have technology that is amazing, but it doesn't add up and we can't fully integrate it. This is where using tech for good causes comes to play. And this is where we can step up. The first step is already covered, which is monitoring. There is an open source dashboard. It's called Night Scouts, and it has a great hashtag, is we are not waiting. We're not waiting for these solutions to become available by pharmaceutical companies or by big corporations, but we're actually using our knowledge for the benefit of those who are suffering from diabetes in this context. So this is a web-based continuous glucose monitor, and it basically shows glucose data in real time, and values are predicted 30 minutes ahead using an autoregressive second-order model. The server reads a MongoDB containing data from, in this case, my sensor, and there are alarms for high and low values. And the best thing of it is that it is free open source software. If you want to check it out, this is my Faulty Pancreas Club dashboard. You will see that right now I'm not using millimoles per liter because I'm in the United States. I'm at 141 milligrams per deciliter. And if you go to this link right now, you'll see something like this. So yeah, that's great. The monitoring issue is solved, but now the second issue that has to be solved and has been partly solved is automating the process. So I'm going to introduce you to something called Open Artificial Pancreas System. This is a system that is safe, it is powerful. It basically replicates a pancreas, and it adjusts the insulin pumps, insulin delivery, to keep the values under control. So it communicates with the monitors, like the one you saw, like this dashboard, to obtain the current and recent blood glucose estimates. And in this case, based on that information, it can issue commands to the insulin pumps to adjust dosing as needed. This is in a diabetic lingo, it's called looping. And there are two types: open loop, where you can have applications that show this data on your phone, as you can see. And I can summon my pump from here, but because I'm open looping, it won't do it automatically, but it will show me suggestions based on the information of my pump and on the information that it gets from my sensor. And from there, I can decide if I want to give myself more or less insulin. This is the case for me at the moment, and I've been doing this for over 8 months, and the recommendations have been spot on. I've had amazing levels. Then the next level would be closed looping, and then that means we let the magic algorithms do their magic, and it can stop insulin delivery if it needs to. It will add a little bit more insulin, just like a pancreas would do. And just for reference, as of July 13, 2020, there are a huge number of individuals around the world using various types of DIY closed loop implementations, and this number continues to grow, and it's grand. And then I'm giving you a lot of more context. based on this information, we can see how can we do something so simple without having to know everything, without having to be masters of medicine, without needing to invest a lot of time into developing complex solutions. And I know you might think this is a lot of context and a lot of introduction, but this information is needed. So just to recap and go to our solution and how little things can make a difference. I have a sensor, I have my phone, and this is sending data to the dashboard you saw. And based on these algorithms, I can make better decisions for dosing myself with insulin. Now, my and your contribution. This is where the good part comes. So you know I'm a Python person. My background is Python, backend and infrastructure. So I decided that I needed something else on top of all these amazing tools. And I decided to use Flask because microframeworks are my flavor of choice. I like being in control. I like the challenge of adding blocks on top of you know, the minimum, the bare bones of something, you know, just routing and logging, and then I can add whatever I need to add without having to depend on a whole battery of solutions. I need the control, and I needed something that was user-friendly. I needed a tool that allowed me to write the most friendly and readable code, because I wanted everyone, even those who are not familiar with Python, to jump in this project. So yeah, you can check that app out. In there, there's the repository, and it uses Flask. Jinja 2 is the default engine for Flask, Materialize CSS, and I use the Vonage Communications APIs. For Firebase, there are two options, because what I like about Firebase is that we can make it as simple and as complex as we need to. We have options like Firestar, Cloud Functions, real-time database, authentication, etc. So let's see, what problem are we solving? So the problem is my phone and this dashboard that I was telling you about, they come with alarms. But in moments of crisis, it is difficult for me to hear them, especially when I am sleeping. To give you a little bit more context, what happens when a diabetic person goes to sleep is that without monitoring, your body can suddenly crash. It is real. The most dreaded time actually when you're diagnosed is night times, and the first few weeks you actually have to monitor constantly. If you don't have any sensors or anything, if you're on multiple daily injections after you give yourself your first injection of basal insulin and you go to bed, you have to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and prick your finger, do the blood sacrifice and measure yourself, and then until you sort of get a stable ratio or rates of doing these things. So very scary. And even after so many years, it still happens. So now that we have all these monitoring tools and that we can automate the insulin delivery process, how about alerting people like me? The thing is, I don't hear the device alarms, but strangely, it doesn't matter if I feel sick, if I feel faint, if I am a deadlock and asleep, I can always hear my phone. Which is why the idea was to make an application that could alert me by calling my number if my levels are out of whack. But how? So we have two basic ranges of values of high and low blood sugars that are pretty much the standard, and we have a phone. So I thought, well, I can use the SMS and voice APIs to notify myself and my emergency contacts of irregular situations with my blood sugar levels. I can grab the readings for the last 16 minutes or any given time frequency through a Python thread with a scheduler. And if ranges are below or higher than what is configured to environment variables, it should fire an alert. There's also the possibility of adding an alert if it doesn't get data for a set period of time. And in this case, it sends a message to all the emergency contacts that my Night Scout dashboard is online. And then if I want, I can add a second scheduler that can be used to obtain fresh data. So the possibilities are endless. The real solution, a simple Flask app that allows me to log in and configure my Night Scout details. In this case, Firebase came in handy for two reasons. I can store all my information of all my readings in a Firebase real database if I want to keep the record, and I can have that as a backup if my dashboard is not online, and also for authentication. And this is when I say, see that every single little bit of help counts. We don't have to develop complex solutions to really make a deep impact in the world. So something as simple as Firebase authentication and real-time database can make a difference. And why this way? Again, I said I needed the friendliest learning curve, so anyone could implement this tool, and so anyone who wants to add anything on top of it can improve it to help others or to help themselves. And this is how it looks. Everything goes into Firebase real-time database that stores the entries endpoints from that Night Scout dashboard. So I can grab my blood glucose readings data. I can store my phone number to receive a call if my levels are out of the norm, an emergency contact, which is my mom in this case, who will get notified if I don't pick up the phone. And this is already huge, because yeah, what if, even though I always hear my phone ring, if I became unresponsive and my phone rang and I didn't pick up, it would go straight to my mom, who could pick up and come see me. But if she doesn't pick up, it can go to up to 5 different emergency contacts that will be alerted. And if neither of them pick up, then there's a possibility of programming an emergency message to a specific provider. And let's have a quick run through on the technical details that made developing this app an enjoyable experience. With all this, again, my goal and my idea is not to show you heavy technical content. This is friendly and I could say simple without sounding patronizing. Anyone can pick it up. Anyone can unleash these powers if they want to. You can make a difference and have a positive impact on the lives of so many if you use your powers for good. So, simple concepts for reviews. Flask uses Jinja as a template engine. It is friendly for any levels because it uses bare HTML. So in this case, we have a parent template defining content blocks to be used by children templates. And it's hot in here. These blocks will display the code from children templates as I mentioned before. And another interesting thing to note is the URL for function that we can use to point to JavaScript and CSS in a static folder. It is a comfortable and elegant way to point to CSS libraries. You can also use it to point to a CDN if you want. And then our simplest side here. It is amazing. So it's not that I'm biased because I'm a Firebase GDE, but I take a lot of pride in the documentation. Setting up Firebase authentication is as easy as a few clicks and copying a few lines of code and integrating them into your applications. And the simplicity of putting all these tools available to use is what makes Firebase king in here. So to carry on, if you see this block, it's extending layout.html. And this is how we tell that login inherits from that parent template called layouts. And then the renderer will load layouts with whatever variations we add to our login file. And these variants will be defined within the blocks we set in layout. For example, in this case, I'm using the head block. And this is where I'm adding, obviously, I'm not showing the entirety of the code because I don't want to show a wall of code. I want you to dive in and check that this repository is seriously super readable and super friendly. And that's how we do it. As easy as that. If we want to dig on the Python side of things, it's even easier or friendlier because Flask has something very special. And that's the route decorators, where you can specify your routes and the methods, if applicable, all in the same place. And it lets you organize your code, because then you can write your functions, and that's where you'll see it. And if you want to know how I built this app step by step with all signs, cherry on top, and everything, you can check nextnode.dev/Night Scouts. Now, if you also click on my name and see all my articles, I have plenty of content with different use cases for Firebase authentication, for cloud functions, there's also a really cool case for a panic button that has an entire Firebase backend, and it's really exciting. So I like also when people give feedback about that content, and if there's anything you'd like to see in particular. I also want to use the same challenge, and I want to invite you. In this case, it's not on Vonage's behalf, but on my own behalf. And I left this slide there because it's the same repository. I want to throw a challenge, the Tech for Good challenge. Check nextnode.dev/EuroPython 2020. It's a short link to a repository. I will be choosing submissions and raffle a Nintendo gift card, so you can get yourself a Nintendo Switch, and I will be picking one winner. I can't honor the open collective $5 price that is listed in there, but I, Diana Rodriguez, I'm committing myself publicly in here to award a solution, a gift card to the Nintendo store, so you can get yourself a Nintendo Switch. So check it out. There's the documentation on how Night Scout works. There's a step-by-step tutorial also in the repository. There are a list of features that could be done and improvements that this app could have. And if you want to win the prize, submit your PR. This will be only for GG London. And I will review submissions on Tuesday and announce the winner on Twitter. I'll probably have more prizes to give to those who participate with PRs. That includes Vonage credits for developing with our APIs, JetBrains licenses. I have a lot of swag as well that I can send your way. But again, I really want you to know that even the simplest little thing can make such a huge difference. And this is why my talk is not heavily technical, but more willing to inspire you to make a difference. And I hope I succeeded. If you want some resources to inform yourself a little bit more about what the diabetes DIY scene is, and if you want to help with the cause, you can follow Sarah Withy on Twitter. That's Geeky Girl Sarah. Scott Henselman, he is a pioneer of the do-it-yourself diabetes community, the person who actually helped me through the ordeal of the first few months. The Night Scout project, the open source dashboard where you can check my blood sugar levels, OpenAPS, the open source advanced pancreas system. And of course, if you want to check out my website, there's nothing amazing in there, but it's made with love. Please feel free. And if you want the link to these slides, and again to my Twitter, it's Katufa82. And I hope you feel inspired to make a difference. And this is what I had to share with you today. Thank you so much for being here, and I really apologize for the weather issues, but yeah. And if you want to chat about it, or if you have any questions, feel free to shoot them. Thank you.
Woo! That's the one thing that I miss about the in-person conferences. You just for that. Wow, people seem to really have enjoyed it. I'm very inspired myself. If could you just go back to that previous slide with all the resources if anyone would like to take a screenshot or...
Definitely.
Yeah, I think, was it this one? Yeah. Very good. So we went a bit over time here. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me. It is really an honor to be here. I'm a big fan of yours. I really admire you, and you do amazing stuff for the community. There's no one more inspiring than you.
Stop it. Stop it. No, really, thank you for saying that. I'm really inspired by everything you said here. And we were just having a joke right now that, like, you are a literal Google developers expert because you're an expert in all the technologies. And some people are asking, does she have a cat? Because I can see a tail from time to time on her screen.
Yeah. Mara likes to hang out. I actually took her with me when I went out. She likes riding in the car.
Are you okay there? Are you safe after the power outage? Are you all right?
I'm safe. I am just really hot. My plan after this is to open the fridge and sit in front of it.
Oh God, yeah, you do that. It's also very warm here in London today.
Wow. Yeah, global warming.
Yeah, it's a thing. It's happening. It's been happening. So if anyone has a question, you can reach out to her in all the links that she's shared with you. I won't take much from your time right now. I'll let you go to the freezer.
Thank you.
Thank you, and enjoy your weekend.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody. Have a great one.